We can't start till 9 o'clock, so just wait. Here it goes. It's 9 o'clock. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Ops and Regs. We will begin with the karakia. Whakatakatiho ki te uru, whakatakatiho ki te tonga, kia maki ki uta, kia mātara ki tatai, kia ana te atua, i tio, puka, hei horu, tuturu, whakati, tina, rie, tai kie. And in particular, welcome to all of our newbies. I thought we might just move around the table introducing ourselves, starting with he who has the most grey hair. That'd be you. No, it's got more of a trim on it. Going on. So we'll start with you, Steve.
Morena tātou ko Steve Rui tōku ingo.
Alan.
Good morning, Alan Jamison.
Morning, Lee Kennedy.
Morena Abby Matthews, Director of Environment Quality.
And I'm Susan Hughes.
Morena, I'm Marie, I'm the Governance Administrator.
Morning, Tom Cloak.
Hi, John Maxwell.
Kinoi tātou, Kurutia Panamaro.
Ko Shiha Ngārewa tōku ingoa, kia koutou.
Tēnā tātou ko Ali Cole tōku ingoa.
And, okay, we're going over the back. Leah?
Morena koutou, ko Leah mana tōku ingoa. Morena, una kau tōku ingoa.
Kia ora, Jared Glasgow.
Morena, Victoria Mackay.
Fred McCloud.
Maria A. Harrison, Director of Operations.
Kia ora tātou, Taranaki, Director of Corporate Services.
And over the back?
Morning, Charles Willing, Communications Advisor.
Morena, Katie Holland, Comms Team Lead.
Thank you all.
You missed a couple at the back.
Oh, we missed, sorry, I missed.
Kia ora tātou, Ryan Mayfield.
Hi, Ryan.
Churchill.
Hi. Right. Do we have any apologies? I believe Mike Davey is an apology. Is that right?
Yeah, and Benita.
Oh, and Benita. So
We nominate the others for latency.
I think because they've come late, they do not count. We will just pretend they're not here. Okay. I'm going to move that the apologies are accepted. Do I have a seconder? Richard, all in favour?
Aye.
And moving on to the first report, consents monitoring. And who's speaking to that? The lady with the second best shoes in the room. Stop.
Morena everybody. As I said, I'm the Environmental Assurance Manager here at the Taranaki Regional Council, reporting to Abby Matthews. And I've got a team of scientists working for me who develop tailored monitoring programs for monitoring our industry around the region. So today right now we're in the throes of reporting. Our monitoring season goes from July to June, and we finish collecting all of our data, and then we write all the reports up. So we're now delivering all those reports to you for your information. And so today I've got 16 reports that are being presented to you in this memo. There were 13 received a high and 3 received a good. They're covering quite a variety of our regions, oil and gas stuff. So we've got deep well injection in there, we've also got production stations, and we've also got some land farming and some seismic work that's undertaken. We've also got quite a bit of wastewater treatment plants coming through, and our closed landfills and a crematorium. So yeah, I'm happy to take any questions on those programmes.
Are you seeing any trends that surprise you or concern you?
I'm seeing a lot of highs, which I think is actually a credit to the team's work. I make particular mention to Fred and Jared's work with Ryan to keep our consent holders compliant with their consent conditions. Obviously, my team collect all the data, so the work they're doing is really, really good too. So, but yeah, really, I think we've been trending on high for quite a lot.
So you see it as positive, obviously?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I mean, good's not a bad result. You know, high is obviously the best, but good is still pretty good.
Right, anyone got a question? John?
This is quite a few of them have optional reviews triggered in the next period.
Yep.
Do you see anything that would trigger that?
I mean, possibly the wastewater changes in legislation may do, but in these particular programmes I couldn't see anything that's particularly triggering.
Richard.
I've got a bit of part-time. It comes on the back of that good, being good.
Yep.
I guess I've noticed it through some of our stuff too, that our councils quite often only, some get high, but a lot of them sit in that good sort of base and they're still areas. How are we going to work with them to keep improving? I know there's a report coming about the wastewater piece.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Because our industry seems to be doing well, doing
Yeah.
really high. How do we get our councils up to that space too?
No, good question. I think that when you read through them, there's two particular scores I gave good to, and they actually were fully compliant with all the consent conditions. However, we have seen some slight emerging issues, which I think could potentially be managed around better site operation. So these are the work that we kind of feed this back to them, and keep them aware of these slight emerging things we're seeing.
Ellie.
Yes, through the chair. I just want to commend the approach on page 14, paragraph 112, that references the rohe of the iwi specific to the kaupapa that's under review, and to ask if this is something that could be replicated to really help facilitate their transparency and engagement. And it may be the fact that I'm quite new to this process. Is there a scorecard that can help us understand the factors that go into this designation of good, etc.? Because I had two particular concerns. The first was on page 11 in paragraph 71, the reference to the detection of norovirus and the obvious impacts on kaimoana. Seems something that would be good to...
Okay, just pause, and I'm just going to get Victoria to respond.
Yep, in terms of the mentioning of the rohi, I think that's a really good point. We aren't consistently doing it, and it's something particularly my team are pushing me into, so I think that's a really good point that we could template to be including that, which would be great. The scorecard in terms of the how we define good and improvement required, we've got that. I can happily send that to you. I think it's actually in the appendices of all of the actual reports. I know that you've probably focused a lot on the exec summaries, but that is in there. We used to have it quite early in the piece, but then now it's in appendices. But that is there. But if you struggle with that, I'm happy to forward that through to you.
Any other questions? If not, we are to receive the report. So can I have someone move that we receive the report? Alan? Jonathan, you'd be happy to second?
Yes.
All in favour?
Aye.
And thank you, Victoria. And now we're on to resource consents, tab 6, and that's Leah, who does have the best shoes of the day. Just Leah.
Morena. The non-notified consents issued by the Taranaki Regional Council between 1st of August and 9th of November. So we had 4 coastal permits, 83 discharge consents, 9 land use consents, 8 water permits and 2 deemed permitted activities. We currently have approximately, I think, under 90 consents on the backlog as of 1st of February, and the consents for the previous year are added to the backlog as of February next year. So there'll be an extra, I think we've got another 140 replacements coming through the system at the moment for non-dairy discharge. So you're likely to see those numbers increase. Between 1st of July and 30th of October, we have issued 120 consents, currently processing 189 consent applications, and have received, I think, around 20 this year. I just wanted to point out one of the applications, the consent for the Waitaha subdivision, Bell Block, heard and judged. So that was an application where the applicant originally applied for a consent to discharge stormwater from roading residential properties into land and into natural inland wetland as part of the Devon Road subdivision. So during the consenting process, the applicant and council worked quite closely with Puketapu Hapu to improve some of the environmental outcomes. As a result, the stormwater design was redone so that there would be good hydrological connections, reduced peak flows through the introduction of rain gardens, soakage systems, and help to manage some of the risks. So they've also committed to riparian wetland protection, enhancement, riparian margins, planting of native species, and improvements to fish passage. So that was a consent. Originally, they just wanted to discharge everything into the wetland, and through the process, and through consultation.
It sounds to me like you've had a real win there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah. That's really positive.
Any other questions?
So has anyone got a question? Alan?
I just said through you, Chair. I'm just looking on page 120, and it's the length of time to issue decisions on applications. And I notice there's a whole lot of them that are over 200 days. Is that sort of normal in the process, or?
Not generally, but it is with some of the older replacement consents that we're still getting through.
Okay.
So we're now at the more complicated, complex ones. We had approximately around 400 to 500 consents on the backlog 3 to 5 years ago when I started, and so we've been working through those. We're now at the tail end of the really tricky ones.
Okay.
A lot of those are notified, so there's a lot more consultation and working with the affected parties in order to get those through the line, so they tend to drag out a little bit.
So through you, Chair, you'd expect that number to drop off now you're getting on top of things?
There's still some big ones in there like Manawa Energy and Taranaki byproducts that we have to work through. So as we work through those, we should see those numbers improve.
Well, the trend has been very much in favour of dropping the numbers. I mean, you're headed in the right direction, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's a positive thing. Tom, did you have a question?
No, I didn't, no.
Welcome, Benita. So are there any other questions? Ali?
Again, through the chair, to commend the team on page 44, there's a reference to updating the consent application form. I see that there is the direction asking if the iwi management plans have been reviewed. I suspect not all the iwi are calling their resource consent relevant documents iwi management plans, even though that's the technical term. Perhaps it might be worth giving examples in brackets, such as Kaitiaki plan, Taiao plan, that could maybe close that loop where we're still not having those documents reviewed when the consents come through. And we also might want to include the fact that there may be fees attached, because sometimes that's coming as a shock when we're receiving those consent applications, that there may be a fee charge and cost recovery just in terms of any other technical report.
Yeah, I think some of the websites from iwi have that notice on there, and some of their iwi management plans for Kaitiaki indicate there would be a cost related to that, but it still can be a surprise depending. Yeah. So happy to communicate that, and happy to comment more specifically. I think in the comments they do talk about Te Uru Tau o Ngārohini, so that's the Kaitiaki thing. So where possible, we try and be specific. But regardless of the name, they will.
Yes.
Yeah, they
just
still fall under
section
Section 104, and they still get
And finally, on page 74, there's the reference to wahi tapu. Just to be careful that we're not relying on the applicant's designation of whether the wahi tapu is out of scope. Of course, that would be for mana whenua to step.
Absolutely. No point noted, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Richard?
I've got one, and it's for you, but probably to Fred. Do we have any timing on update from central government around what these resource consent forms look like? Was it meant to be end of this year? They were meant to give us
I'm not sure of the question, but
Oh, sorry, and where it's coming is probably more towards, I wasn't here at the last, I was online around the freshwater plan, just wondering if we've got any direction from central government at the moment around these resource consent reforms, and how that's tracked.
to you, Madam Chair, no. There's a whole lot of balls in the air. You can predict how some of them may land, but there's nothing concrete. So 9th of December will be a key date for us to get an idea of what the government are thinking. And knowing how big the job is they have before them, I'd imagine that on the 9th of December it's going to be high level sort of framework sort of discussion. So
Thank you.
That's all I can add.
Okay. Nothing else. Can I have someone move that we receive and note the reports? John, you moved. Shihan, will you second? All in favour? And thank you. So now we're on to 7, Jared. And if you can just give us a wee introduction of who you are and what you do for the benefit of the newbies.
7.3, if you want me to talk now. That's my conflict.
No, just hi-ho until it arises.
Just noting a potential conflict of interest with page 167, consent 7338.
Okay, well, let's just wait till we get there.
Cool.
And see where we go, because if it's simply just the presentation of the reports, then we don't need to trouble ourselves with that. Jared.
Kia ora, thank you. For those that don't know me, my name's Jared Glasgow. I'm the Compliance Manager here at Taranaki Regional Council, which ultimately is the boots on the ground, I guess the pointy end of the Resource Management Act. So there's a team of us, there's 16 in our team, 11 of them are compliance officers, 2 team leads that support the management of those officers, including Ryan Honeyfield, who you'll hear from later today, and 2 officers that help support the delivery of those compliance functions. So our team ultimately do a lot of the compliance monitoring around industry. We do all the dairy compliance monitoring, NCAP submissions, dairy effluent discharges, earthworks, subdivisions. So Mount Messenger is a big piece of our work at the moment. Oil and gas monitoring around exploration, production stations, oil spill response, inland and marine. We train regularly for those and work with Maritime New Zealand on that. We also do all the incident response. So if anyone rings up this council with a complaint, then our team will attend those, work through it, assess whether they're compliant with the rules and the plans or resource consents, or whether it's even our business, and if it's not, we'll allocate it to the appropriate agency. And then the other thing our team do is all non-compliances, whether discovered by our team, Victoria's team, or other members in the council, all come through our department. So our department will take those on, work them up, assess the evidence, and apply the enforcement tools as necessary. So the Resource Management Act provides us a number of tools, from corrective actions such as enforcement orders and abatement notices, through to punitive measures such as infringement notices and prosecutions. Prosecutions really get run by Ryan, and we try to use a graduated response to our enforcement, but it's inevitable that prosecutions come from time to time. There are a few on the books at the moment, and hopefully we'll be able to update council in due process as they progress through a heavily congested court system at present.
And are you seeing any change now that the abatement notice penalties are increased?
Not yet, but they've just started coming out because it was for offending post-September, or for September onwards. So they're just those increased infringements are coming out now. I expect that it will create a bit of a knee jerk because they're significant increases, which Ryan will talk about. I expect them to have a much more deterrent aspect.
Yes, and I wondered, I mean, obviously you're doing your best to spread the message in advance, saying, you know, this is the consequence if you do breach. Best you don't, because obviously that's in everybody's best interest that there isn't a breach, rather than punishing them for breaching, isn't it?
Oh, most definitely, and it's forced us to look at our processes again as these evolve around certain offending where a $300 infringement may have been appropriate. Is it now appropriate to dish out a much more significant infringement for that level of offending, or is there with the increase now, really good with dealing with high-end, more serious offending? Is it still an appropriate tool at the lesser end of the scale? So that's just a process we're going through at the moment.
Is there anything in particular you wanted to draw to our attention in your report?
On page 1. So the report, obviously it's a 13-week report. It's usually a 6-week report, so it's a big report for this time. The main thing I want to just highlight is A couple of points you'll notice there's a lot of non-compliances for the dairy industry, for dairy effluent discharges. Now that is because the season's kicked off. We've undertaken a lot of our sampling. So there's 1,443 dairy farms in Taranaki. Of that, we've inspected 710 since September. So we're well on our way. We've sampled, there's 224 oxidation pond treatment systems, and some of those are duals and contingencies that are allowed to discharge to water. With our inspections, we've sampled all that we're discharging, which is 84 of them, which result in a lot of the non-compliances you're seeing. But the overall, although a lot of them are in this agenda, the overall non-compliance rate for dairy at the moment is sitting at 5.4%.
And that compares to past years how?
It's about the same as similar to past years. Probably coming out of the sampling, it's a bit lower. And I think our non-compliance we've seen in oxidation pond discharges this year, although some of them have been non-compliant, the parameters have been to a lesser degree. We're not getting the significant non-compliances, and we're still seeing a big drive for these farmers to push to land. So the number of dairy oxidation ponds discharging is just plummeting over the last 5 years. So that's really, really good. And a lot of the people that have got dual consents are capping their ponds, not having that risk with discharging to water. Cool. So that's all trending in a magic direction for us.
Right. Anyone got any questions? Tom?
Just on the ponding, there's quite a few that are ponding. Is that could that be related to the high rainfall that we've had in the spring?
Sorry, I missed
the
that.
Ponding that a number of them are experiencing. Is that related to the high rainfall that we're experiencing in the spring?
Some of it is, but some of it is just I'd say the majority of it still comes down to that management and setting those irrigators up for the time of year, because you can change the gearing on them. So they need to set them up. If it's spring, they need to be fast. Whereas, once they've cut their hay off, they may want to slow them down a bit. It's managing it on the soil temperatures, soil saturations. One other thing we've had a bit of a spike this year for unknown reasons for green streams. There's been a few green streams coming through. There'll be a few in the next agenda. For a number of things. Stormwater diversions accidentally left open, overland flow from irrigation systems. So what we did a few weeks ago is we put out some comms to every consent holder to let them know we're having this issue, and really asking them to go through their systems, check their systems, make sure that if they've got staff, the staff are aware of the risks, what paddocks are suitable, what aren't, where subsurface drainage systems are, all that sort of thing. We haven't had a lot of feedback, but the green streams since that point have decreased.
Yeah, that's the closest piece.
Yeah.
Touch wood, touch his head.
So we're hoping that comms piece has succeeded, and we'll keep doing it anyway.
Okay. Right, questions? Ali.
Through the chair, on that green streams point, there did seem to be a real cluster, especially around September. That was really helpful feedback to hear about the proactive steps, and perhaps bumping that into your overview could help demonstrate the efforts that you're taking. Because I'm guessing there were lab tests done, but what is it? This green streams? Is it E. coli? What is the? Yeah, and on page 141, where that's the Alphen Still report, the analysis looks like really emphasising MCI results that couldn't be deployed, I think, until 28 days or 22 days later. And I think there could be some really good opportunities in those types of incidents for cultural health index deployment. And I know that's still under development, but perhaps connecting with iwi reps would enable partnerships to deploy that type of method under assessment if there's blocks to your team getting into the site earlier.
There's a couple of points there. around the comms round, so the green streams are dairy effluents, so we're getting it's ammonia and bacteria, you know, E. coli, and that's probably the big effect. Not only is it visual and it's a waste stream we don't want in our streams, but we're thinking that these comms pieces are really starting to help, and the same with backyard burning. Soon you'll see a superstar coming out very shortly with a few comms pieces around backyard burning and what can and can't be done, and burning and air discharges in general. So that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. So those comms pieces we're trying to work those into to address our trends. The health and wastewater treatment, the MCI record, it was delayed. It was because it happened during the significant rainfall event that we had. So we had to, for the MCI to be meaningful, for want of a better word, they had to be able to get into the stream, which took some days. And then we needed a period of fine weather to allow all those critters to habitat the places they're meant to be, rather than just all being washed downstream. So there was a delay in doing that work. The work was done. There was, on the background of this, significant sampling that was done nearly every day for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then we had meetings on site with Sam and local iwi and hapu at the site, and there has been talk about another follow-up meeting on that. And then the officers, the science team, put together reports analysing the MCI and the surface waters, and they got provided to district councils and the iwi and hapu of interest. So there was a lot of work in there, but yeah, the MCI was delayed simply because of weather conditions. So we're allowed, it wasn't an access problem at all, it was just getting the right environmental conditions that made the science meaningful.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? If not,
I move, Chair.
Tom, you move. Ali, you're second, I'm sure, that we receive the various reports and note.
Could I not second, please?
All right then. Lee, how do you feel about seconding? You're happy with that?
He's got a smile on his face.
Right, okay. So we will receive and note accordingly. All in favour?
Just one. Oh, sorry. Carry on. Okay.
All in favour? Right, that'll be everybody.
I just make a note. You were commenting on Leah's shoes. What about Jared's nice silky tie? Come on, be fair.
Yeah, I suppose we could go with the tie.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. He can be tie of the day and Leah's shoes of the day. That's it. Right, and now we're on to tab 8, and that is yours, Ryan.
Ryan Hunfield. As Jared mentioned, I'm one of the team leaders in the compliance department. In my world is a lot of prosecutions and the pointy ends of the RNA. And I just spoke to you over this Melanie Churchill. She goes and puts together our incident non-compliance incident we see. It's a big chunk of work that she does every 6 weeks. So I say thank you to Mel for doing that. So what I'd like to present today for you, Madam Chair, is recent changes to infringement offences and also some consent and other systems changes that have come in. So here at Council, part of our enforcement's, graduated response to non-compliances. Infringements are an important compliance tool that we use. We've used them for some time. We issue them in accordance with our enforcement policy. Thank you. So they're akin to an instant fine for a minor non-compliance that can be used instead of an expensive, resource-intensive prosecution, which may result in a minimal fine in that end. So the previous enforcement regulations, they've been enforced for about 25 years, and the infringement levels have remained the same over that whole time. So that's meant that the effectiveness of those fines have reduced over time, and the effectiveness as a deterrent has weakened as well. So this council, along with other regional councils throughout New Zealand, have been advocating for the fine levels to be increased to ensure that as a method of deterrence remains relevant and significant. So on 4th of September, the government introduced a raft of new infringement regulations. So some of the key points of those, so infringement fines, previously they ranged from $300 to $1,000. Now they've ranged from $600 to $4,000. And they've also introduced a higher penalty for companies. As part of the regulation changes, there's been an increase in the fine amounts for RMA prosecutions. So previously for a natural person, it was $300,000. This has been increased to $1 million. For a non-natural person, so a company, it used to be $600,000, now it's been increased to $10 million. And as part of that prosecution change, they reduced the maximum penalty for imprisonment down to 18 months. And the reason for this was to remove the option for electing a jury trial for RMA offences. So that has a whole lot of time-saving effects for the courts, because a jury trial is very time-consuming and resource-intensive. Also, as part of the change, one key change is that utilising insurance policies to pay a fine issued as a result of RMA prosecutions has been removed. It's become an offence to do so. And a quirk of this one is the change is actually retrospective as well, so meaning that it's capturing matters that were before the courts at the time of the legislation change. So the council, or we've experienced some delay in some of our cases as a result of this. So it's resulted in a few more delays in our cases while financial assessments have been done on our offenders. Yes, so happy to answer any questions.
Right, have we got anyone with a question for Ryan? If not, can I have someone move that we...
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
Just sort of similar to what you asked in the previous section about the change in behaviour. But the new fines and the new level, are they in line with what the TRC has previously submitted or what you supported with the other councils?
Yes, yeah, yeah.
And you think that'll change the behaviour?
Ellie?
Yeah.
Sorry. So the chair, do you think there's much room for discretion for the council? Jared, kind of references, and you mentioned it too, this graduated response, in trying to recalibrate that. So it's not such a challenge. That's how I understood your contribution. Correct me if I'm wrong, but how much scope is there really for the prosecution in trying to make sure that the penalty, as I understood you saying, doesn't seem to be too severe compared to previous practice?
Yeah, good point. So part of our assessment when we decide on enforcement action, we do what's called an enforcement action checklist. And part of those considerations that we look at are actual environmental effects, potential environmental effects, compliance history, among some other things, and efforts taken to comply and to fix the situation. So there's probably a raft of about 20 considerations that we look at. And so that really guides us gives us what options. So sometimes when we do that, it directs us in a really direct path of what to do, or other times there's a bit more flexibility with it. So what Jared touched on there was what we're implementing is a formal warning process, which we'd view as it sits at that level of an infringement. We'd be having the same evidence threshold, and it carries a implication in certain histories and things like that. So implementing a formal warning process to fill that gap that wasn't there previously, where a $3,000 fine might not necessarily be justified for the level of offence.
So, Madam Chair, we have an enforcement policy that the council approves, that the officers then implement. That's currently under review, so these changes will be factored in. And the other important note here is that applicants now, for consent, have to set out their compliance history, right, in an application. So that's at the forefront of making decisions in that regard.
If nothing else, can I have someone move that the report be received?
I can move this.
Okay, Ellie? Alan, to second, all in favour? And now moving on to the Dow Paratutu site investigation, Victoria. You've got a slideshow for us as well, haven't you?
Hello again, everybody. It's about timely for us to give you an update on the progress made at the Dow site at Paratutu and the investigation work that's been undertaken there. This is the agenda. It gives you a little photo there of the site. You can see there if you're not familiar with it. I'm sure most of you are. But I'll just give you a little bit of a background on the Paratutu site. I think you've already had a little bit of a background through the induction process and talk to you about the stakeholders involved in this. A little bit about the project timeline and where we are currently in the investigation, and then a bit of a forward look. So the Paratutu site, no surprises, it's pretty massive, 16 hectares. Used to be a agricultural chemical production factory, 60 years in operation, and became non-operational in the early 2020. Then it was demolished in 2022. I'll show you some photos of that. And there's been a bit of a multi-staged approach to how we're going to progress, not we, but Dow and the team, but we're one of the stakeholders, approach to remediating the site in great detail. There is current monitoring on the site already undertaken by the Regional Council, just to do with its previous use operationally. And there were stormwater controls and groundwater monitoring and all that. That is still ongoing. So there's a couple of photos. So back there in 1975, I think the site had been operational for about 10 years by then. You can see in that shot there's not as much development to the south of the site. There's not a lot of residential around it. But then if you move into 2017, you can see that the residential development really started encroaching the site. And then there's another photo there that just shows you it demoed. It's not completely demoed. There's some quite significant structures in the middle that are still left there for a number of reasons. They are Waitapu sites, so disturbing them is actually extremely sensitive to our hapu. So these are the two streams I was talking about. We've got what we're calling a roadmap to remediation. This was established, so one step, Dow has taken on Tonkin & Taylor, a globally credible environmental consultant, to undertake this investigation on their behalf. And this roadmap was developed by Tonkin & Taylor in collaboration with our hapu on site. So the hapu who mana whenua to this, Ngāti Tuwiti, Namahanga and Ngāti Tauri. So everybody and us, including NPDC and TRC, all were involved in reviewing that roadmap. The roadmap I'll just cover off in a few slides as well. It's an intrusive site investigation, so it's very phased. There's a stage of data collection, and then there's a stage of site investigation and pulling it all together. There's huge liaison with stakeholders. Obviously, it's got massive community interest, this site. There's a lot of passion around it in the community about doing the right job by it. I personally take that very responsibly. I have dinner with my friends who ask me about it all the time. So doing a credible job and making sure that Dow are doing a credible job is very important to us, particularly at TRC. And obviously our mana whenua as well. So again, I talked about that second stream there, the site management. This is non-operational site, so we're still out there collecting samples. They have stormwater ponds that are still on the site that do have discharge consents, and there's also a whole swathe of groundwater monitoring which have been installed, which we monitor and they get reported on, just to make sure that they continue to be compliant with their existing consents. So these are the stakeholders. I feel like I got this a little bit wrong actually, so I apologise, I'll explain it. So the stakeholders, obviously we've got Dow with their team, Tonkin & Taylor, undertaking the work. We've got in the middle there stakeholders, which is obviously us and NPDC. We all have roles to play in contaminated sites. We've got a phone line open so that, as it was Neil Holden, but I'm sure Mayor Max will be super keen to be on that in that space too. Becca, I've got in that one, but Becca actually was appointed jointly through a tender process with MPDC and Taranaki Regional Council and our mana whenua. Becca, our peer reviewer. So obviously it's a globally significant site in terms of potentially its contamination, very complicated geology and hydrogeology, and it's a really sensitive site to our community. So we felt that we haven't got the contaminated land knowledge in site here at TRC or MPDC, so we took Becca on as an independent peer reviewer to make sure that Tonkin and Taylor's work is credible. I'm sure, you know, we believe Tonkin and Taylor would be, but it's been a really good avenue for us to have those high-level discussions with these high-level contaminated land experts. Obviously, we'll go on to the iwi and the hapu. I mentioned Namahanga, Ngāti Tairi, and Ngāti Tuiti are very involved as well in the site. Am I clicking? Maybe I can go back. Oh, I went the wrong way. Here we go. So there's a high-level roadmap sequence there. So stage one was really, we've got plans for the site being operational. So with it being now demoed, the plans had to get reviewed and updated. So that was all done. Stage two, site investigation planning. So this is a huge stage. This is a stage where really, and I'll talk a little bit more about it as we go through, the preliminary site investigation, they call it, or a PSI. That is really collecting every bit of information that's known about the site. There's a lot of investigation already being done on the site, and there's a lot of anecdotal information in our community from people who work there or live next door to it, and yeah, all sorts of stories, data collected by the TRC. So this stage is really pulling it all together. And what they call it is a conceptual site model. So everything, the geology, the hydrogeology, all of the known information about any contamination. They look at how the site was set up, the potential risks associated with the processing, and the activities, where the materials were stored, looking at everything at this stage, because you need to understand fully the site before you can start targeting the investigation and analysing for the right things. So that stage was completed. It involved a huge amount of public consultation. There was invites to people who worked at the plants to be interviewed, and I think the team went down to the National Archives in Wellington to look at information. The document's massive. It's on our website. It's linked on our website. Tonkin and Taylor have got a designated page to this actual investigation. So as the information becomes publicly available, it all gets shared there. But from looking through, particularly the public consultation element, it was actually quite involved, and it's over a 140-page document full of the community's input to this stage of making sure that DAO were aware of everything they thought of the site. So the next stage, we go on to the site investigation. We're currently in this stage. So and we'll talk a bit more about that because they've zoned the site off because it's 16 hectares, so it's pretty huge. And then stage 4 is consenting. There's consenting that goes on throughout the site anyway, because as I mentioned, the site has got many Waitapu sites on it, and the disturbance of those with any investigation is discretionary activity, so it needs to have a resource consent, which is a process that MPDC handles. So there's not been the ability to get into some of the middle of the site yet because of that, but now, as of the middle of November, the consent was granted to undertake that work. So then moving on then, once we've gone through all of the iterative stages of investigation, because they'll go through and they'll investigate, they'll look at their findings, they'll look at their conceptual model, and they'll determine if they need to do more. So it'll be an iterative process of evolving this conceptual site model before they're even in any position to know if there's any remediation needed at the site, and if so, to what degree. So yeah, this is just really talking about, I sort of put this together really to show the stakeholder involvements. So you'll see there's in-person interviews and media updates, and the iwi did a blessing on the site when we started. So it's very interaction, very collaborative with us. And this is a high-level timeline, just really talking from back in 2021 when packaging ceased and the site closed. Working along that timeline, we appointed our peer reviewer in early January 2024. There's a lot, it doesn't seem like a lot's been happening, but blessing undertaken in April 24 by mana whenua. We completed this preliminary site investigation in August 24. Phase 1 soil sampling was completed December last year, and they've prepared a sampling and analysis plan for the next phase of works. And that resource consent was lodged with NPDC, which has now been granted to undertake the investigation and sites of consideration to Māori. So there's dedicated information on our site in Tompkin and Taylor's to have a look if anyone wants to. These, not surprisingly, these are the things that were actually identified in the preliminary site investigation as having been undertaken that could potentially be contaminating things: dangerous goods compounds, drum storage, substations, incinerators, chemical storage areas. I mean, obviously there's a lot going on. It was a big agricultural chemical processing facility. So this is the zoning for the next bit. So that there shows you the site chopped up. The bottom left is zone 1. It's in 10 zones. They kind of go almost in a sort of snaky zigzag, the way they've determined it, but you'll see some red spots in there where they're targeting specific areas. So they're sort of they're calling it phase 1, 2 and 3. Phase 1 is zone 1, and that's completed. Phase 2 is almost like the whole of the central area, starts at the bottom in the south all the way through. And then there's this phase 3, which are these red spots, which they'll be being a lot more focused on, potentially really contaminated areas. Oh, before I skip on that one, I'll go back. I really did skip on. Oh, I've gone right the wrong way. Sorry, guys. There we go. So just to mention that as well as the PSI, they then did it where we knew all of this anecdotal evidence that potentially there were drums buried around the site. There was then a big geophysical survey of the whole site. That tends to try and pick up anomalies in the soil that could be stuff buried. So they used that geophysical survey to focus again on the investigation to make sure that they were looking in the right places. So I just want to flag that. These are just a snapshot of some stuff being collected. So this is grab sample. These are hand auger results. They'd had boreholes. They did test pitting. So there's been all sorts of soil sampling techniques used on the site for that zone. And fortunately, the phase 1 findings, they focused on the phase 1 first, partly because they couldn't get into the other areas yet, but also because phase 1 was deemed to be of low contamination risk. There wasn't a lot of activities undertaken in that area. So it was a perfect opportunity because it's a massive site investigation to trial methods. So they were able to use that to make sure that their sample storage is done correctly because the sample numbers are massive. They are testing methodologies and just working through the process before they apply it to the next stage. So in this one, they didn't actually find any buried material in the areas that had some anomalies. They did find some fill in that area there. The geology tends to be dunes, and I think there was a lot of dunes that were pushed over back in the day, so there was a lot of just sand, but there was obviously some clay brought in at the time. All the levels that they recorded were natural background. They did have low levels of dioxin, but well with below soil samples, and there was a bit of a zinc hit. If you can see towards the sea in the south, in the northeast corner of the site, there was a pylon there that was taken down, and it's not on the property, but when you maintain pylons, you use sandblasting, and they can actually take the paint off, and that's pretty much what the investigation picked up, a halo around where the pylon was. So the phase 1 findings will inform the investigation into the other areas. So these are we did some additional sampling on the areas they could still get into. So they did this ISM, incremental sample methodology. It's used for large sites like this, and it's not something that you use exclusively, but it's hundreds of little cores taken with the idea that they can composite them all together and have a representative sample of a large area. They also used XRF to see what metals there were in the soil, and as well as the discrete sampling that I mentioned earlier at 31 locations. The incremental sampling method was used as a kind of comparison with the discrete sampling to see if they said the same things. So both were undertaken there. Long-term outlook. So understanding the condition of the land, that's the priority still, remains the priority. So it's continuing with the investigation, and the assessment in the future will inform the remediation plans and any land use decisions that are made for the site. It's currently zoned commercial industrial. And yeah, make sure it's all in line with our local planning requirements. So focusing on strong community interest in the site, making sure that everything we do is as transparent as possible, everything that they do is credible as possible, respecting the interests of Mana Whenua on the site. So that's it.
Well, thank you for your report.
That's okay.
Excellent. Are there any questions? Alan?
Through you, Chair, I just had one, and it was really with Dow Chemical owning it, all this ongoing monitoring, compliance and all the work happening, those charges passed on, or?
Yeah, they pay for everything.
Okay.
Tom?
Chair, what's to stop Dow walking away from the site at any time? I see they took ownership of it in 2024, I think, or 2023. What's to stop them walking away? Say, no, we don't want it, we're out of it.
I guess they could go bankrupt and it become an orphan site, but...
Well, they're not necessarily go bankrupt, but just
I
walk
think
away.
Yeah,
reputation.
Reputation, yeah. I mean, I guess yes, but they aren't.
And
No,
they
they
took
aren't, but they could.
But they took the site back, Tom. So so that to me was a tangible evidence of their willingness to accept responsibility. And they are a multi-bazillion-dollar international company. So if they were to walk away from this and leave it contaminated, I think their reputation would take a fairly massive hit. And the short point is we have no ability to make them stay there. So we're lucky that that is the position they've taken thus far, and long may it continue. Any other questions?
Chair, what kind of timeframes are associated to the future planning, like stage 3, 4 and 5?
The original timeline was about 8 years from start to finish. I think the complexity in the consenting and dealing with the community is probably going to push that out. So, I mean, I have to stick with the plan and say probably 8 years, but I wouldn't be surprised if it didn't take longer to make sure the job's done properly.
Benita?
Kia ora. Just in terms of consulting with past staff members, etc., is that still an option if people know of friends or family who work there? And another related, well, actually might be unrelated question is the other sites of potential contamination around the city, are they being considered at all as well?
Good questions. There is opportunity. As I said, the conceptual site model that they develop for the site is constantly being updated. So there's no reason why information couldn't be fed in. And I'd encourage you to reach out to the Tonkin and Taylor website if people would like to do that, and let them know what you know. In terms of the other areas around town that there's been some thoughts and feelings about too, that's not included as part of this investigation, it's just purely within the boundary.
Through you, Madam Chair, there's also work taken by this council to investigate all the claims that were made around where Duncan had occurred. So I'm pretty sure we've got to the bottom of that.
That may be so, but I think the point that Victoria's making is if there's anyone out there that feels they've got something else to contribute, that the door is not shut. And I'm understanding from you, Victoria, that there's a link on the Tonkin and Taylor website that would enable people to feed in more information.
Exclusive email address for this project, so you'll find that on their website on the page. But the additional, they wouldn't be investigating outside the boundary of the site, so any information at this stage, it could be added to that site.
Okay, well, thank you. Fred, it's really hard to hear you, Fred. Can you speak?
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little bit better.
I'm such a quiet person.
So just following up on what Fred said, all of those investigations into all those other dump sites or potential dump sites, supposed dump sites, just if you could just give us a brief summary of what was found.
Through you, they'll achieve very little.
Very little.
Very little. Nothing. There were a whole lot of accusations made. There was a whole lot of game playing, recanted, occurred, and we found very little. So nowhere near the degree of contamination that was claimed by vetting.
That information's on our website, on the DAO page as well, the reports that were completed as a result of that work, and it involved a lot of interviewing people again and going out there and looking specifically at spots that they were concerned about.
Right, if there are no further questions, Craig, you'll move. Seconder, Tom. And so we're moving that the report be received. All in favour?
Right.
And moving now on to item 10, Victoria.
Yeah. A few meetings ago, we were asked by Council to report on the work that our territorial authorities are doing on the inflow and infiltration space. So for a bit of an overview of what that is, inflow and infiltration is when water gets into our pipes, our sewer pipes. Wastewater treatment plants are designed to cope with a certain amount of volume, and if that's exceeded, it can compromise their ability to perform properly. So our consents with these territorial authorities, with our TAs, they actually mean that they have to tell us the effort they're making in that space. So what this report does, and I gave you a little picture in there which hopefully sort of paints a picture of what I&I is, which we call it I&I. So, you know, there's things like if a tree grows into a pipe, it can damage the pipe, and then you can get groundwater that flow into it. Or if a pipe's put together and the joints aren't put together properly with the rubber seals, water can get into it. Manholes can leak at the surface. There's all sorts of ways where, you know, there's actually some quite sneaky ways where water can get in, where people connect their stormwater pipes directly into the wastewater. If they can't get stormwater off their properties, then why not just connect it to the sewer and give it to someone else to deal with? That's actually a real problem around our region. So I've given a report here that shows the efforts that the territorial authorities are making in that space to undertake this work. It could be CCTing the pipes so they can get in there with cameras and have a look. They can also go in with smoke and blow smoke into the pipes to see where it comes out, and can often come up in people's gully tracks in their houses. Or they can literally go physically dig up pipes. They can also go in with a sort of composite liner which they put in as a sock to line the pipes from the inside. So they put a lot of effort into it. Just giving you the information that they provide to us on the efforts that each individual council has made in this year just gone, and the money that they're planning on spending on the year coming. So I'm happy to take any questions, and I will do my best to answer them.
Helen.
Through you, Chair, through a past life, I do know all the work that Stratford has done and how they've done it, and the big effects and changes that it's actually made. Do you think the level of work is satisfactory in meeting the requirements, or do you have a level that they must meet, or are you just happy with them?
I think they self-regulate themselves in that space, because I mean, when you read through the report, you can see the different, where these wastewater treatment plants, such as Waverley, they output to a quite sensitive wetland, and it's really important that the quality of that effluent is small and really high. So it's in their best interest to actually, because to meet their consent conditions, they really have to work on stopping the water getting into their pipes. You know, Howard is a shared outfall with Fonterra, you know, and that one is obviously going into our marine environment. So again, we've got consent conditions to keep them compliant, and I think you picked up on the issue earlier with norovirus. So these are issues that it's in their best interest to make these changes to be compliant with the consent we've got with them.
So through you, Madam Chair, and part answer this question, what districts need to do is to do more compliance and monitoring around those who are legally connected to their systems. That's what they need to do to stop those pads coming through the facility. That's an area.
I know major peaks are to do with rainfall with a lot of them, with some of that insertions, and I know they have to treat every bit of water, so it's very costly for them as well for the
That's an area where,
to treat rainwater, you know.
some regulatory work on the districts would reduce what came down the pipe. And would then
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Ellie?
Through the chair, just to commend the team for the really clear presentation of this technical issue. I learned a lot and really enjoyed reading the work. At para 9 on page 224, under STC, that's a shared area of interest for to qualify. O Ngāti Wahine, so adding them in addition to Te Rūnga or Ngāti Rōnui would be necessary. Did you have a time frame on sharing copies of that work?
No, I don't actually, but I can find out. Yeah.
Anything else? If not, can I have someone move that the report be received? John? And Craig? All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, Victoria. I think you should have a wee lie down. You've been a bit busy. And Steve. You'd just like to introduce yourself briefly, Steve, so for those who don't know you.
Cool. Sure. Thanks, Madam Chair. Morana Tātou, Steve Ellis, Environment Services Manager. So my team saves the world. We do...
The violin coming through.
It is true. But you're not killing the cats yet.
So, biosecurity, we're split into 3: biosecurity, so that's long-term pest management, the traditional stuff like your gorse and your ragdoll, and possums and mustelars, and possibly clams, which we'll talk about in a second. The other part is our biodiversity protection, so we're helping landowners to protect those really high value and highly threatened sites in the region, with things like helping them fence, legally protect, and do pest park and animal control. And the other bit is our predator-free program, and we've been leading a lot of the predator-free research to see if New Zealand can in fact become predator-free by 2050. So we save the world. So I'm here today to talk to you about Corbicula flaminia, or gold clam. If you've been following the news, you will know. Have you got it? I don't know.
It was fantastic reporting with that young boy,
Yes,
wasn't it?
yes.
Yeah, he's a little legend,
Yes.
little Max. So discovered it during a Take a Kid fishing day, and little Max came up to our team who were there doing, our team in conjunction with Biosecurity Taranaki actually, that we're working with, doing sort of awareness and advocacy around freshwater pests. And he came up and he saw the little block that is getting passed around, and he said to Abby, I've just seen one of those. She probably didn't really believe him. And he went, yeah, I did. So she told him to go off and have a look, and he came back with this one shell. So really good spotting from young Max. And yeah, that has caused all sorts of consternation over the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Are these an adult size?
Yes, they could get slightly bigger than that biggest one. The smallest one is about the one that Max found, but they get slightly bigger than the bigger one. So, just a 101 on Corbicula, and I won't go through every single one of them, but you know, they're in about 200 kilometres of the Waikato River. The real interesting ones is they can reproduce from 3 months and pop out another 400 offspring a day. So just a mere 70,000 new clams a day. The other thing that I just was reading today, Katie sent an article, and they can filter about a litre of water a day, and they're taking the calcium out of the water to build their shells. So as they get into a biomass, they need to take out lots and lots of calcium out of the water. Taking calcium out of the water raises arsenic levels in the water. So there's real issues around drinking water supplies in the Waikato, because that does Auckland's water supply. So yeah, found on the 8th of November, so not very long ago, and we've been busy since trying to figure out what happens. Just a picture of the lake, just to give you some sort of geography here. I have got a pointy thing anyway. Down the bottom of the lake, where it says clams found, that is where the boat ramp is and the new jetty, and that's where young Max found them. The next day after that, or the Monday, it was the Saturday, on the Monday, the team were in sampling in the areas where we thought most likely to have clams, so areas where they could have come off boats. We found nothing else except for in that area. Straight after that, the following day after that, MPI sent a team to help us with sampling a bit wider, and we went out and sampled on the Waifakaio, both immediately outside of the lake and then in key areas upstream. So if you follow the blue dots upstream, to the bottom, we've got just by the valley there, Audrey Gale, Tupare and Meeting of the Waters. They were our first key areas because that's the high use places where we thought they might find. So there's a picture of the team looking, and then they also took eDNA samples along those sites, which have come back negative. We also went a bit further, noting that we've got other boating lakes in Taranaki, and the most closest one is Ratapiko. So we went there as well and have looked there, found nothing, did eDNA, found nothing in that site. So we do think that it may be confined to Lake Rotomari. So, like I said in the paper, this has been updated from what we've got in Diligent, and we're updating all the time. We had a meeting Friday afternoon with the expert group, and I've tried to sort of incorporate some of that. So, what now? So, because they're not new to New Zealand, MPI are supporting but not leading any response. So, there is unlikely to be any money from central government. If we decide to respond, we're going to have to find the money ourselves within council or hopefully district council and wherever else we can find it. We have set up the regional curricular coordination group, not my name, I wouldn't have called it that. And we've got members there. You can see we had our first meeting on the 18th, and we met again last week to figure out what our options are. So straight away we did those surveys, we've increased our signage at the lake. We've worked with NPDC, who have been awesome in closing the lake for us voluntarily without us having to put a controlled area notice on, or MPI having to put a controlled area notice on. It's making a few bogies grumpy, but that's the only way we can, or the best way to stop any spread. We've been identifying key users. You know, the golf course take water from the lake to water the greens, things like that. Who's using it? The remote control yacht club, all of those kind of people trying to work with them. We've since that map I showed you earlier, we've now done Rotakari as well, and found nothing at Rotakari because they were really concerned, obviously being another boating lake. One of the things, and every man and his dog's been ringing me or stopping me or emailing me saying, why don't you just lower the level of the lake? It's like, I hadn't thought of that. I actually had. And what we were worried about is if we reduce the level in the lake, we're just essentially flushing the clams out into the lower lake. So when they reproduce, they're microscopic. So they're just floating through the water column and they just get pushed out into the river. So we did some salinity testing. The EQ team did that for us. And we found out that it's not very salty. It was over a lower tide, but we just wanted to get some idea of how salty it was if we do let them go in that outflow. That doesn't mean we can't lower the lake, it just means we'll have to do it when the river's pumping a bit and they get a free hydroslide out to sea. So we're still looking at options around that. We've increased our comms, and hats off to Katie over here. She's been doing a great job with our comms into your backs and getting all of that good social media stuff out. So if you do want to see updates between me coming to talk to you, just follow the Facebook page. That's what we're saying to all the boats who keep emailing saying, can I take my jet ski out? We've also increased the team by 1 FTE. So we normally get a student FTE in the summer to do freshwater biodiversity, biosecurity notices. We've actually doubled that now so we can put more resources there and free up a bit of my team to think about the options. And yeah, working through with the technical experts. we know we need to do more surveys. So one of the things, if we're going to go for eradication, which is an option, is we need to know exactly where they are, because leaving a little patch of them means we haven't eradicated them, they'll just come back. So we know we need to do more surveys, both at Rotakate and at the other boating lakes. There is a small risk to Lake Mangamahoe, because although there's no boats on Lake Mangamahoe, fishers do go to Lake Mangamahoe. But like I said, at this stage it looks like Rotamana is the only place they are. I put that second to bottom with them there on purpose, because basically there is no budget. We do not have a budget at council for responding to these kind of events. So any money that we do end up spending is going to impact on our annual plan targets. I'm going to have to take some of the team off other jobs and or cash from other areas. So it might impact our peace plant control, for example. And just a hats off, and I think it's really important, you know, this came about because we had people at the lake talking about this stuff, and then young Max recognised it, so our advocacy work's really important. So we do need to look at maybe strengthening that, and that's why we've put an extra person in there for the summer. Options are really limited, so there is an option to do nothing. Literally just close the lake to watercraft for the rest of eternity, and do biosecurity, check clean dry notices, maybe put in a washdown station at the lake. But even that's going to cost 40 grand to stick a washdown station at the lake. Options we've been talking with the experts is draining and drying. So you can see in the photo there, that was in August, so they only drained the lake in August. They don't drain it all the way, but we can drain it enough to get into there to do our sampling easier, and then potentially whatever water's left, we can either chemical treatment, which I'm not too keen on, or salt treatment. They don't really like salt. So if we back up a whole heap of trucks in there and dump salt in, we might be able to kill them with salt. There's also matting that they're trialling in the Waikato, where they're putting matting over and it basically suffocates them. Like I said, all of those things are going to impact on the lake this summer. So we're still looking at these. The most likely one that we think is the best option is our drain, dry, treat. So, like I said, drain it, dry it out. It could be that we have to remove, so they burrow to about 25 centimetres. It could be that we have to remove up to 50 centimetres of riverbed to make sure that we dig them all out. Ka-ching. And so that's one of the options, and then treat with the salt or whatever. Things we're considering, risks of draining, like I said, we can't let them all go into the river. Lake users, boaties, walkers, fishers. It was interesting the first weekend that we were there and we'd closed the lake and we had a little tent up. I reckon it was probably 70-30, maybe 80-20 saying, 80% saying, isn't it nice not to be here when boats go, and then 20 to 30% going, when can I get it back on my jet ski? So, you know, there's both sides we have to look at there. Also fish life, trout, short and long finned eels and grass carp. The day we found it, they released 600 trout into the lake. So there's people madly fishing to get trout out of there. But yeah, we do know that there's long and short finned eels in there and grass carp to keep the weeds down. So if we drop the river or drop the level, we're going to have to net it, get all those fish out. They do have to be euthanised, we can't put them anywhere else. But if we leave them there, it's just going to won't be very pleasant. So we're going to have to remove all of those. And we've been talking with Harper around what harvesting options we've got around the Tigger. Yeah, so we're going to have to make some hard calls financially and operationally around what we do. Yeah, sorry it's so quick. It is a very quickly moving situation, but I wanted to give everybody an update.
Thanks, Steve. Questions? Craig?
Thanks, Steve. Just on the advocacy, it was really great. I was there on the day doing fishing with my boy, and it was they had the biosecurity had a tent right there, right in the thick of it. Interesting posters, obviously the displays as well, some other stuff. Abby was there doing a really good job. So, yeah, it wouldn't have happened if they weren't there. Of course, it wouldn't have been noticed. And you know, it was right next to the sausages. So, you know, the kids were there. and she was engaged, and they engaged with her. So,
Abby was a bit embarrassed, Craig, because you had a hat on and sunglasses, and she didn't recognise you. But
that's all right. So did I.
She's like, it was great.
And just on the cost of this, it's incredible that we would have to fund the cleanup ourselves. That's what you're saying, and that sounds really expensive, especially when you're talking about disposing of all those fish and digging 50 centimetres into the lake. It's not a tiny lake.
10.5 hectares.
Do you have any thoughts about how much this cleanup might cost?
I'll be guessing. But it's got a lot of zeros after it.
Yeah. 6.
I'd literally be guessing, but I know we'll be doing it differently, but the 4 hectare lake where they've removed the other species up at the Taupō aquatic was about $1 million. Now, I'm not saying it's 4 times that because we're tweaking times that because we're bigger, but it just gives some sort of indication. They were using copper, so I don't think we want to use copper. Salt's cheap, but yeah, if we're going to have to dig out and do all that stuff, I don't think we're going to get a change out of. I'd like to say $500,000, but I actually think it's more like closer to $1 million.
Benita.
Kia ora. Sorry, I had a bit of lag there for a minute. Did I hear you say that you're working with hapu, and would that hapu be Ngāti Tāwherikura? I'm declaring my whakapapa links to Tāwherikura, ka pai. And is there ongoing monitoring of those other water bodies where these boats may be spreading these shellfish?
Yep, through UTS there is, and we're looking at getting a washdown station at Ratapiko, which is the place that logically all the boaties in New Plymouth will go to, and they can't go to Rotamani. So we're pushing that information hard and getting a washdown station for them.
Yeah, ka pai. It seems to be the cheaper option rather than the full-blown $1 million option. Ilda.
Don't hold me to the $1 million.
Would there be some value, Steve, in doing something like trying to persuade the kids that they want to be clam monitors over the summer, and if you find evidence of a clam, then TRC will buy you macas, or something like that. I mean, something like that involves the kids in this kind of thing, given that Max was such a raging success.
So yeah, one of the ideas is to get Max to be our clam ambassador. And feed him up with macas, and give him some t-shirts and the like. We've already, he's really keen,
But if we could encourage other kids,
get him as the ambassador to encourage others to go, hey, what are you looking for?
And if they find something, this is what you do, and this is the reward you get for being the clam catcher.
Gets kids out there too.
Jonathan.
Steve, what's the involvement, if any, of New Plymouth District Council in remediation or any of this work?
At the moment, as the lake owners, they're part of the technical group to look at feasibility options. I haven't talked to them about money yet, but they've been really helpful in, they've said they can lower the lake as soon as we ask them to, and they'll cover that kind of parts of the cost. So yeah, they've been really helpful and figuring out but it's, when it comes to money, we haven't had those conversations. So right now the technical team is putting together an eradication project plan, and then we can start costing it. How much salt do we need? How much water can we get pumped out of there? How deep do we have to go? All of that kind of stuff. So I can come back with a realistic cost. So we'll carry on doing that regardless. Fred just reminded me, I talked about eDNA, and so just in case you don't know, so that's taking samples of the water and testing, is there any DNA in the water? That works quite well in flowing water, but in a lake situation, it doesn't work that well because the water doesn't move much. So you've got to do lots and lots of them, and they're like $360 each or something. So you've got to do lots of those. So we're better off looking for it at the start and then start looking at eDNA.
So just through the chair, so the intent at this stage is to keep the lake closed to watercraft?
Yes. Motorised water. And the motorised is because the water gets sucked up into the motor. So if you think of the jet boats, even outboard motors, you know, if you've ever been in them, there's still a bit of water in there. So kayaks and the like are fine, as long as they check clean dry, so that's our message. But yeah, it's the jet boats and the wake boats, although it's a bit smaller lake for wake boats, but the odd one does use it. It's sucking up water into the engine and then not being able to release it all.
Right, Ellie.
Again, yeah, through the chair to echo commending the team. It's such a wonderful good news story, particularly in the context of the current reform discussions. It really demonstrates the irreplaceable value of TRC and, as you say, saving the world, especially with our drinking water. I would like to know the scope for doing a kaupapa Māori assessment, particularly in terms of treaty settlement implications, to the extent to which these claims can have a biohazard impact on taonga species. The way that you mentioned this morning just made me think of the 4 different inanga species that have a similar schooling method and hitchhike across carrier species. So there could be some predation there impacting our protections under our settlement legislation. Secondly, there's really great mātauranga kōrero, not just from Waikato, but also in the Rotorua lakes, using harakeke and fern bracken weaving on the matting aspect that you mentioned. Yeah, so if there was a kaupapa Māori assessment that could cover off those 2 aspects, it could really add value.
And that's exactly why we've got Hapu in there to help us with those things. The flax matting works quite well for pest plant species, but it won't take the oxygen out, so it's probably not an option for clams, but definitely for pest plant species it does help with the removal, squashing down pest plant.
Okay. Right, can I have someone move that we receive your move, Tom? Lily will second. All in favour?
Aye.
Thank you, Steve. And our last item, Holly.
Through the chair, I'll introduce Holly Lawman. Holly's the team leader of our riparian land management team. So I can say the word.
You're in great company then, aren't you, Holly? The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, so team leader of riparian. So out working with farmers, I like to say the intensive farming zone. So we're out there with all of our dairy farmers every day, really, trying to improve the environment and make us more sustainable for the future. So we have gone into an auditing phase, so I will do a very brief introduction of how we got there. So a brief history of our program. We started this riparian program in 1993, where we came up with a strategy to address diffuse source contaminants getting into our waterways. Since then, we have prepared over 3,000 plans for our farmers and land users, covering 18,000 kilometres of stream bank. We've achieved almost 90% of all margins being fenced and 85% of margins planted where recommended. That is over 8 million native plants sold to landowners at cost, and we're now into this auditing phase. What that looks like. There's a lot of hard work and a lot of plants every year for a number of years now. Over 20, almost 30 years of effort to get those types of results, working one-on-one with farmers to get them engaged. So Wainungaroa was kind of our pilot in regards to auditing. So the Wainungaroa catchment has 1,377 kilometres of stream bank mapped within our riparian plans. We have audited 1,247 kilometres of that stream bank, so 90%. That has shown that 89.4% of our riparian margins are at what we would call acceptable levels, and 29.4% of that stream bank is deemed excellent and receiving an A-grade audit. So that results in approximately 386 hectares of retired land in our riparian margins, which is an average of 3.1 metres buffer on each side of our waterways. And that includes drains, wetlands, streams and wide rivers. The average shading across all waterways within the catchment from our work averages out to approximately 76%. So that's a lot of really good work that's been done by our farmers with the support of our staff. What more there is to be done out there, so we still have 12 kilometres of non-compliant rivers, so that aren't meeting the resource management stock exclusion regulations, and another 39 kilometres of waterways where we recommend fencing with at least 1 metre buffers, so that's our streams, drains and wetlands. There is 59.7 kilometres of waterways where we recommend planting, which if they do 1 row of planting would be approximately 20,000 plants, and another 14 kilometres of stream bank where we have deemed the fence is too close to the waterway and we would like to see some widened margins. However, we don't like minimum, we want to see excellence. So we would like to see all of our margins reach a state of excellence that we can all be proud of, farmers and us alike. So we have already 58% of our margins with wide enough buffers and sufficient fencing to receive an A grade, but it will require weed control, additional planting, just a lot more effort by the farmer to actually get it to that point, which requires ongoing engagement, sharing our passion, getting them to envisage what it could look like. And 96% of our margins have been assessed as adequate for nutrient and sediment control. So basically the margin that you can see in the photo would be adequate in terms of sediment and nutrient control with all of our grass, but to make it an exceptional margin, there's so much more that could be done. What that means for my team is really sharing that passion. We want to see things look amazing, like the photo that's up there. We want nice thick vegetation, no weeds, and providing nice shading and a lot of it overland flow protection. So we need to help our farmers see that vision, see what they could achieve on their own land, and keep prioritising projects that will make the biggest difference. Beyond that, there's so much more that we do while we're out there, so many more things that we talk to our farmers about and that we're preparing them for in regards to freshwater farm plans. we need to be looking at where our underground pipes are coming out, what nutrient protection we have there, what's the water quality coming out of those. Bridge crossings, that's an AI generated image, just to be clear, making sure that our stock are protected, not getting into the waterways, and also that there is sufficient bunding on the bridges to not have nutrients just going straight into the waterways from there. What's happening at silage pits, what's happening in critical source areas, on steep slopes, all of these different little management practices where we can be encouraging best practice. And our farmers' attitudes have been absolutely excellent. We've actually had a lot of feedback from our farmers that this is getting them re-engaged in their riparian plan. The audit is giving them more information about where they can work on, so they may have thought that they were finished, but there's still areas that they can be improving, and this has re-engaged them in that process. We've audited in this catchment 564 plans, which is 96.8% of plans were contactable and audited. There was only 3.2%, which works out to 19 farmers that we were unable to contact or told us no. The rest of the catchment, the fact we've only done 90%, that's due to them being in lifestyle blocks and low priority. Out of 450 discussions, we've only had 2 farmers that have received their audit with any sort of anger or vastly negative response. Everybody else has been understanding and cooperative. And we've even had people calling us back 3 months later saying, I've moved all of my fences back. I'm ready for you to come back out and have a look again. So we're seeing a really high level of engagement. Lots of farmers want to know how to get to A grades, so we've created resources to help them achieve that and see what that means. And we are ready to keep working with them to achieve those goals as we move forward.
Well done. Excellent effort. Any questions? Ellie?
Through the chair, could this be shared with Ngāti Rōnui and Te Korowa o Ngāruahine? And I think they would really value an opportunity to call together with you.
Okay. No other questions? If I can ask for someone to move the recommendation, that we receive the recommendations, Craig, and John to second. All in favour?
Aye.
And that is the end of our meeting.
Thank you.
Yes.
Chair, as we're right on the deadline for starting the policy and planning meeting, can I ask those that are not attending the policy and planning meeting to vacate their seats quite quickly, please?
Thank you.